Hello everybody, John here. Welcome back to the channel. So we have probably the most productive week we've had on this channel's history for many reasons. For one, you may notice that on the channel there is currently a subscription that I have subscribed to. Their name is Rareno. They are a very good friend of the channel, personally, and they primarily have played Bloodborne and games like those, like Dark Souls like games. So please definitely give them the subscription and the views, even though they are leagues, and I mean leagues above where I am. But they are, like I said, a good friend, and they definitely deserve all the credit because they are really good at what they did. Um, Attached to that, I made a post on the community page voting whether yes or no I should subscribe to channels that I personally watch and channels that we've like listened to music to, um, whether that be official, would be album, would be people that re-uploaded. Because I mean, let's be honest, here in the metal community, a lot of the times a lot of these bands, they just do local releases, so it's kind of up to fans to kind of like spread their message further. So there will be some fan subscriptions, topics, YouTube topics, which aren't always the best, but it could be worse. uh, so vote for that. If the first vote comes in, I'm gonna wait a week and then we'll go from there. Just be warned, there will be well over 100 subscriptions, so it's going to be a lot. Um, so we'll cross that bridge when we come. The other thing is the analog horror video blew up. The retention span. I shouldn't say that because that sounds like I'm degrading the people who watched it, but the average watch time was quite a bit higher than like some of my other videos. So people actually stayed and watched the video, at least in most part or all the way through, and not skipping around like some of the other videos. Which I don't have I really don't care. This is a hobby that I'm doing, doing YouTube, getting my mind out there, eventually getting music. I know I keep saying that, but music is a lot harder to kind of put all together than I could ever realize, and I'm a novice. But anyways, um, I don't. It's a little weird what happened, but I don't know. But basically, at the highest views I saw was 57 views on the analog horror. Now it's down to 54. So I don't know if that's like accidental clicks that don't quite register, especially on my end, because sometimes I accidentally click on the videos. So maybe it kind of like, YouTube after a few hours kind of like redoes it. But even at 54, that is more than the first Ruby video I did 10 months ago now. It'll be a year in March when Rooster Teeth announced that they were shutting down. And like I said, I'm a little sad that Ruby didn't get the recognition, because Ruby has been a big part of my life. I really love the show and I love the characters and everyone who was involved with it. But like I said before, analog horror is horror, and it's a great fascination of mine. I love the stories, as I talked about in that video. So I am happy that it's getting the recognition it deserves, and I'm happy that there was a person that came by and they liked almost half of the community posts that came out at that point, which is why I was a little skeptical at first, because it's like, okay, maybe there's a bot, maybe there's like a YouTube bot, but it's just too. I'm too small of a channel. I'm too small of a channel to really be influenced. Not influenced. I shouldn't say that because I know what a bot looks like, but like I'm not big enough for a bot to really come in and do a lot of change. Now, for like say Penguin Zero, Markiplier, even to, like people like Immortal Marcus and then other big channels, bots just destroy the comment section. So, um, but anyways, this is not what this video is about. This video is about I wouldn't say it was an analog horror, but it's an analog cartoon. Maybe we can call it that. And it's I Can't Sleep. Now, I Can't Sleep. Let's talk about its style first. It's very early 2000s, Newgrounds. Like, it takes a lot of inspiration from like Newgrounds, from early DeviantArt, early cartoon forums, and for some reason it reminds me of a little mixture of Invader Zim and that one show where basically the girl is raised by bugs, and the whole show was to talk about and educate about bugs. I think it was a PBS kids show. That's what the style kind of reminds me of. It's very early 2000s, early YouTube kind of style. The story or lack thereof is very interpretive, but it does kind of come off as very, I don't want to say heavy-handed because that's not it, but it's very forward coming on what it's talking about. So essentially what the story follows is this one woman, I'll call her main character. There's a name for her. I forgot what it's called. What her name is called. And essentially we are seeing what more than likely is either traumatic experiences that she's had growing up and as an adult, or nightmares that she has, and it's usually one or the other or both at the same time. So it does a lot of themes of psychosis, depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, bipolarism, stuff like that. But the essential story, as far as I know, was that when growing up, her mother was I'm going to say a prostitute, and the main character was sexually abused by possibly different stepfathers, or maybe like men that her mom brought home and stuff like that. And then growing up, she's somewhat not following her mother's footsteps, but definitely never fully recovering from that. And she is still, obviously, she's traumatized by this. She was, all the evidence points that she was sexually molested multiple times by many people in her life. And usually, if I remember correctly, if someone was sexually abused once, at some point in their life, they will be more than likely to do it again. That would happen to them again. And that's usually because people take advantage of what I call wounded people. For example, let's say a kid was molested at a young age, even multiple times. When they grow up, there's that statistic of like, okay, they're gonna have like sexual deviancies or whatever. But mostly it comes down to whether or not they find people, whether they do it purposely or not. Usually it's not. Usually psychopaths, literally psychopaths, kind of pick up on the social cues that maybe this person was like sexually abused, so you can take advantage of them and then sexually abuse them again. And that's kind of what the story is. It's mostly the main character just living this hellish life every single day, reminded of all the things that has happened to them, and it's scary because the imagery is really scary. There's jump scares, there's monsters, there's like I said, this disturbing art and whatnot. But at the end of the video, you just feel so awful as like as an emotional as a rational person. A poor woman going through the stuff that she has and more than likely still is very troubling. And what's even more uncanny, I guess, is um, the fact that there's really not a lot of outside resources or media about I Can't Sleep. Literally, the only medias there are for I Can't Sleep is YouTube and I believe a Coffee or Ko-fi, whatever you want to see, how you call it. It's some sort of or Patreon. It might be Patreon. Um, and that's it. As far as I know, there's no Twitter, there's no Instagram, there's no Facebook. There's no. I think there is a subreddit, but I don't think it's official. I think that was like fan made. Um, but it's just. I call it analog horror because there is that filter of like early 2000s grayscale almost, or like filter. Excuse me. That makes like analog videos older, and the audio is like very old and degraded sounding. Um, so that's why I kind of call it analog horror, is the analog cartoon, but it's so much more than that. It really is. I I can't express enough how much I Can't Sleep bothers me to a core. It. I think obviously the the biggest thing that bothers me is anything to do with kids and animals. Anything innocent is hard to watch be abused in any way, and getting those metaphors enough was rough enough. I can't imagine the horrors that poor girl had to go through. And the scary thing is the fact that I'm not just saying that. I'm thinking this might be the creator's way of expressing themselves, or they know someone that they love went through this and they're doing this out of respect for them. But at the same time too, this isn't uncommon. you know Child molestation and rape in general is so common around the world. I think every country and every society has a rape problem. They do. They do. You can't deny it when tens of thousands of women every year, in some of the most populated and some of the most, you can go from the most technological advanced countries in the world, like Japan, South Korea, United States, United Kingdom, Russia, and then you go down to poorer nations like South Sudan, Chile. I don't know about Chile, but like Bolivia, the Congo, and in the Philippines, and say that oh, there's no problem. No, there is. There is a international rape problem. And it's sad that yes, it's getting the recognition it deserves, but it's not having those necessary steps to really go into play. For example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, there were stories of women and young children being molested by Russian soldiers and paramilitary forces moving in from Luhansk and Donetsk into Russia. Yet, yeah, we got some ICC stuff coming out, but it never fully got the recognition it deserves. Granted, it's still a war going on, so you can't really prosecute a country that's actively at war. That's the side of the victors. But even more recently, let's go with Gaza and Israel. Look at the stories from both sides. There was mass amounts of rape and molestation on each side, and this has been for those two, Hamas and, or I should say, yeah, I guess Palestine and Israel, both forces that rule those countries have had used rape and molestation as a tool of war, which is of course what you call it there, it breaks the Geneva Convention basically. It's it breaks the rules of war, basically. So it just bothers me. That's the one thing that bothers me. I've seen a lot of fucked up stuff on the internet. I've seen some fucked up stuff in my real life. That though fucks me up the most is anything to do with kids and animals. Those two you don't. And like I said, just seeing what I Can't Sleep has made. It's hard to. It's just hard to watch sometimes, and I think they do a good job. They don't do it disrespectfully. I don't want to say that. It's just hard to watch because of how brutally honest it is in the depictions or the innuendos or innuation of child molestation and adult rape. It's sorry. It just really bothers me. It really does. So I'm gonna end this video here because now I'm kind of I don't say I'm bummed out. That's not a good way to say it, end it off, but it's a sobering reminder of the world we live in, unfortunately. And I just gotta say out there, if you got kids, protect them with all your heart. Do whatever you can to make sure they don't get hurt in those ways. And if you're an adult, especially if you're a woman nowadays, you know, you know, maybe even men too. I mean, men have been sexually assaulted a lot lately. Whether it's hetero or homosexual. Everyone just be careful out there. Have something on you, whether it's a knife, whether it's pepper spray, if you can, a gun or a taser, anything that can protect you from harm like that. Because the physical damage can heal sometimes, but obviously the mental, it never goes away. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully next time will be a little bit more uplifting. But yeah, no, go check out I Can't Sleep and vote in the polls, but not to subscribe, and go subscribe to Rare No. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.